No,
Okay.
I wanted to talk about that MUD with the one.
Oh yeah, the MUD.
One voter that you just reported on. Yeah, let's talk about that. Tell us what happened.
Tell us what a MUD is, because I don't think a lot of people know what a MUD is.
Yeah. A MUD, Municipal Utility District, it's a special purpose district. Basically, it is a taxing entity that borrows money to build sewage and other kind of residential infrastructure necessary to support homes, suburbs, things like that. They build it in rural areas and get them developed. We're seeing a lot in the kind of exurbs of big cities. This happened in Rockwall.
How is it different from like in this case, if I live in Austin, so I would think that Austin would do that sort of stuff, right? But if I move out to a MUD, is that a city? Is that a town? Is it its own thing? Can it be within a city? Can a MUD start within Austin?
I think it'd have to be an undeveloped part of Austin.
Okay.
There's another thing called a municipal management district that can be used more for already developed areas.
Let me just say something real quick. You said maybe an undeveloped part of Austin. Charles Blaine thinks that none of Austin is developed enough. So I guess we can all just be one big MUD.
Charles wants us all to live in apartments.
If you're lucky, if you have enough Bitcoin and it doesn't crash to zero and they use the internet skill switch, you can sell it off and maybe you can get a 2-bedroom apartment. Look at that.
I was just trying to piss off both of us.
He hit the Bitcoin. That struck a chord with Michael. Oh man.
So yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt too much. I just wanted to pick on Charles and Michael.
So in this case, this happened in Rockwall. That's east of Dallas. And this has been going on for like a year and a half or so. In 22, there was an election to create the MUD and authorize like $830 million worth of debt spending. And it was approved by only one voter, which is par for the course with most of these MUDs, but it's just pretty wild to see.
Can you clarify? It was approved by one voter. Does that mean that it was approved by, like, the margin was one vote, or only one person voted?
One singular voted, cast the decide.
How does one person vote for $830 million or whatever it is? How does that happen? Where do they even get who's going to give them that money? There's only one person.
That's the law in Texas. But it's this difficult dilemma in how do you build the infrastructure that's a prerequisite for a tax base or a voter base before they're even there. So, it's a wild scenario, but I don't know if there's really a way around it. What makes this one so insane is that the guy had a lengthy criminal record. Before the election, it was all misdemeanors, so he can still vote. But afterwards, he was convicted of one felony, and then there were a few other felonies that were pled down to misdemeanors, one of which was aggravated sexual assault of a child. That was pled down. It's just a crazy situation, and the county's suing over it, so they're hoping to invalidate that election.
He pled down aggravated sexual assault of a child, so
yeah,
there was the accusation was he aggravatedly sexually assaulted a child, and he pled that down to something less.
Pled it down to illegal touching. Yeah.
Why do they let people do that? Do you think that of all the crimes that you want to prosecute to the maximum extent of the law, sexual assault of a child, especially aggravated, you'd think that'd be maybe at the top?
He must have done it in Travis County or something.
Ooh, DA race, bringing it back.
But so I got a question on this. The MUD, he's the one voter, but is he also the developer, or how does? So he just created the MUD. He's the applicant with the TCEQ and the voter.
No, generally how. Generally how it works is a developer finds an area and they begin the process of creating this MUD. If the legislature's in session, the ledge has to approve it. If they're not, the TCEQ PCQ can approve it, which is one of the big gripes of some legislators that pay attention to this. Justin Holland's one. He's big on this issue. He is also in Rockwall, so this is close to home for him. But regardless, they get approved very easily. A lot of times when the ledge is in session, they get strapped onto larger bills, like barnacles to a ship, and get through, even if there was previous opposition. But the developer pays this one voter to basically squat on the undeveloped land, register to vote there, and then that creates the MUD. And oftentimes, the person that is the developer serves as the president of the MUD. That's the case in Colony Ridge. The MMD there was both an MMD and a MUD created. The guy that runs that has all the taxing authority is the developer of Colony Ridge, Trey Harris. So it's a weird situation.
Yeah, and the developer here is Don Huffines' brother. Is that right?
Yep, Philip Huffines. Yep,
Philip Huffines, and Philip Huffines couldn't find a non-criminal to squat. Like,
don't family. You couldn't get his nephew to do it or something.
You could, yeah. I don't think many of these people do a lot of research into who it is. It's it's just a crappy job to do. You're living in the middle of nowhere for a year. I think you have to be registered there.
Mm-hmm.
So they find just scuzzy people
who are willing to live in the middle of nowhere for a year.
I mean, given the right amount of money, I'd live in the middle of nowhere for a year. I mean, what is it? There's $830 million on the line. You're going to pay me to live in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, but you're also there's no sewage. I mean, you're living in probably a trailer. It's not like services set up.
Do not care. You pay. I mean, how much? What's the going rate here?
I mean, I get it. Yeah, but you're not getting paid $850 million. You're probably getting paid like $20,000 or something.
I know, but I don't know, a savvy negotiator, right? Hey, you guys got $830 million on the line. How much are you going to pay me to live out here? It better be more than $20,000. Better be seven figures.
Record, you might not have that leverage to ask for more than $20,000.
If I have a criminal record, is that what you said?
Yeah, if you're this guy, you might not have the leverage. You might just be like, right, I'll take it.
Well, your leverage is if they don't pay you enough, you go and vote it down.
What? There you go.
You agree to the $20,000, and then when it comes down to the vote, you say, no, Senor Huffines, I want some of that car dealership money. Yeah. For those that don't know, Don Huffines, former candidate for governor of Texas, he owns a lot of car dealerships, right? Yeah. Okay. Well,
he and his brothers have a lot of businesses.
Little Texas history for everybody.
Also in the MUD business.
Oh yeah, he is.
They got to be able to do something.
If I go like this,
they got to be able to do something about that. The legislature, right? I mean, I get that you need MUDs, but you got to be able to put. I'm not a big fan of regulation either, but you got to be able to put some guardrails to on this thing, right?
The suggestion I've heard the most is requiring consent from the Board of Commissioners before a MUD can be created. That way you have some local official stake in it. Now you don't need it at all, and you'll see boards of commissioners put out resolutions either for or against these things, and it's just a informality basically. And I think in the Colony Ridge example, the board did approve the creation of the MMD there in the MUD, but I think in Rockwall they did not in a resolution, but it still went through anyway. Yeah, it's a tricky situation. There's not really a good way to solve it, and especially with how much growth is coming to the state, you have to be able to build this prerequisite infrastructure. Otherwise, you're gonna shove everybody into where the people already are, and nobody wants to live in New York City if they're in Texas, right? So, only imperfect solutions, I think. Charles,
stop pointing at me. No, I agree though. I mean, you gotta. you've got to have the services and the amenities to attract the people to ultimately then pay down the debt. But yeah, so it's like a weird catch-22 here. It's like you got to figure out something. But some of them work well. Like the township of the Woodlands is technically just a special purpose district, and it operates rather well. And voters voted against incorporation because of how much they like it and stuff. And so, but then you have these other ones, which you have like 3 people who go and vote like all this massive amount of money. It's like, I don't know, it's crazy.
Well, and other problems with these MUDs, it's very difficult to find any information about when they meet, what the board does when they meet, things like that. Like there's almost no transparency with most of these things. With the Woodlands is probably the biggest exception, but it's a lot of tax money that they authorize the collection of, and people just see it appear on their property tax bill and generally have no idea why the hell it's a thing until they start looking into it after they see their bill.
Yeah.
Well, Charles loves it because it develops. It's more development. So Charles,
I do like MUDs when they're operated appropriately and when it's
what does
transparent.
appropriately mean? A lot of closets for people to sleep in? Is that appropriate for you, Charles?
When you have open board meetings and you invite people to the board meetings and they're able to actually,